I was raised in Hollywood, California.
Mm.
So I grew up in Palm Springs, California, and I went from Palm Springs to Compton. I graduated from Compton High in 1968.
Wait a minute though. Palm Springs is like a ritzy area. Your family's rich? You're rich, Harold?
No. We moved to Palm Springs in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 50s, most people of color, they ended up on what was called a reservation, or Section 14. It was probably one of the most coveted square miles in the heart of Palm Springs. This is where we ended up living. They called it the reservation because we shared residences with Indians to a certain degree. And it was a Section 14 because, as I said, it was one of the most coveted pieces of property there. So while I was there, I went to Palm Springs High, left Palm Springs when I was about 16, went to Los Angeles to live with my dad.
Went to the big city.
Went to the big city, and that had to be like 1966, and got with my father, and I went to Compton High.
Well,
He
Harold,
lived in Compton, so I graduated from Compton High. I'm straight out of Compton.
well, what did you think you'd be doing? What did you think you would be doing? You're in there at Compton High, thinking about your next move. You've already jumped. You've left Palm Springs.
Yeah.
You went to LA, to the big city. What
Yeah.
did you think you were going to be doing as an adult?
I was like, I had no idea. I was like 16, 17, 18 years old. One of the things that I can say that certainly contributed to it was my love for art. In high school, when I was fascinated, I studied some theater while I was in high school in Palm Springs High. And then I had this great art teacher, and one of the things that she did was she introduced us to art, and it would be slideshows to classical music. So we were looking at Renoir, Van Gogh, Picasso, all these renowned artists, impressionist artists, and it was always to some classical music. From there, I just kind of like naturally progressed art. I started painting when I was in Compton High. When I was at Compton High, I was dating a young lady she was going to Washington High, and she asked me to do to draw a prom gown for her. So I did that, and we weren't seeing each other at the time, but I did that, and I hadn't seen her. After that, we didn't see each other. So, but you asked me about costumes. How did I know? I didn't. What happened was there was a young man, a gentleman that showed up at our apartment, and he had an application for what was called at that time, Sawyer School of Business, and there was a fashion institute connected with that, I guess. And it was 4 young ladies that had this great idea to have a fashion institute, and they hooked up with the Sawyer School of Business. At that time, these young ladies, they had recruited 26 students, 23 young ladies and 3 guys. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those 3. Mm-hmm. But that was in 68. I graduated from there. It was an institute. It was a 1-year program. I graduated in 1969. And when I graduated in 1969, I ended up, while I was at this school, I ended up working at Orbox. Orbox was one of the high-end fashion department stores in Los Angeles at the time. So I was working there, and I was hired as a fashion coordinator for the boys' prep shop. Mm. Boys'
the preppy look. You did the preppy
look. Fashion coordinator for all the little boys that came in, and their parents brought them in, and I was hooking them up. But the thing was, I had no idea. All I know is I was preparing to be a fashion buyer. That was the whole. That was the plan. I ended up going to Paramount Studios. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it was just, and I still to this day, if you're being asked, as you're asking me, whether it was a conversation with someone, whatever it was, I ended up at Paramount Studios in their unemployment office, filled out an application and, wardrobe, and about a month or so later, I got a call.
Mm-hmm.
I was invited to be a part of the apprenticeship program for the film industry,
Mm-hmm.
based on the information that I gave them, which was wardrobe. Now, at that time, there in the 60s, the late 60s, in like 69, 70, there was a program called the Minority Labor Pool, or Minority Labor Program, which meant for minorities that had expressed some interest in the industry, they were invited to be a part of that program that related to what their interest was. Mine happened to be wardrobe. There was makeup, there was hair, there was lighting,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. Prior to that, there were very few faces of color behind camera.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wanted to be in front of the camera. Of course, you
Yeah.
got
Cleopatra
Sidney Poitier,
Jones.
you got Sidney Poitier, I'm talking about black.
Come
I'm
on,
talking people of
Pam
color.
Grier.
Pam-
We all
you have
wanted
all
to be
of-
Pam
So you have
Grier.
all of these, but see, you have all of
Most
these
of us.
people that were in front of the camera or directing, but none of us were behind the camera. None of us were working. So that was a whole new world that had opened up to those of us that had no idea what we had stepped into.
Mm-hmm.
Mine, as a costumer, once I was accepted, I was hired. My job was for 1 year, 3 months at the 4 major studios.
Mm-hmm.
For 1 year, 3 months at the 4 major studios, I was paid to learn how to be a costumer. And with each studio, they were paid, and it was their responsibility to teach me how to be a costumer. So 20th Century Fox was the first studio that I had ever walked on at 19 years old. 19 years old, young black man, 19. Nothing about working about, none of that. Here I am, I'm walking in here and.
Were you shell-shocked?
I don't know what I was. To be honest, it was just, it was like, wow, here I am.
It was a whole,
whole
new world.
I think at the time that I was went on the 20th Century Fox, Julia was on hiatus with Diane Carroll. That show was on hiatus. So they were doing also Hello Dolly
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and my thing was a part of my training was to learn how to size and costumes. And then when I finished there, my next stop was Paramount Studios. And when I was at Paramount Studios, I was giving a tour of all the productions, and one of them happened to be the original Mod Squad. So I met the cast from Mod Squad, Transferred him the Third, which later on, he and I worked together off and on over the years. And then...
that's the guy that played Prince's father in Purple Rain.
Link, yeah. He was
Yeah, Link.
But he was Link, yeah. So when I finished that, my next stop was Warner Brothers, and that was where I met my first mentor, the guy that first took me under me and introduced me to the world of costuming.
What's his name?
His name was Jack Delaney. Jack Delaney. After that, he became my champion, for lack of a better description, because
Mm-hmm.
I ended up through him working on the original Mod Squad. The original Dukes of Hazzards.
Mm.
So I was on Dukes of Hazzards. Prior to that, one of the first film projects that I set that I stepped on as an apprentice was The Skin Game with Lou Gossett Jr. and Jim Garner. Lou Gossett Jr. and I today are great friends.
Mm.
And that was the first production that I met him on. Over the years, he and I worked together on other productions after that.
Well, let's talk about some of your favorite projects. Yeah, we've got this iconic poster here.
My favorite
Phantom of the
yes.
Opera.
Yes.
Robert Guillaume. I remember Benson.
Yes.
Benson was this smart alecky, smart talking butler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smart as a whip.
Yeah.
But he was always helping his employer to navigate the
Through all the political stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I
and then he
remember
ended
that,
up, he was so good
Mhm.
as that character. He
Yeah.
ended up with his own sitcom.
Yes, he did. And you know, I mean, again, I'll say this. I'll go back to growing up on the reservation, we were the only family on the reservation that had a small, square, black and white television. So a lot of the people that I ended up working with over the years in my career, I was looking at them on TV as a kid. So when Benson came around, I'm looking at that, and I had no idea that I would grow into this person as a costumer to be working with him. So when he did get that, when they did hire him to do that, I remember I had already been in business for a while, and I was working at ABC. I had done something, I think I was doing the original Love, something, it was a TV show. Also, I was doing I can't think of it now, a lot of stuff. Gosh.
I mean, listen.
Yeah, but anyhow, it's a lot.
You've done a lot of,
yeah, there's a lot.
and work with a lot of actors and
Yeah.
you know, superstars, really.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
like-
I want to say,
And this production made history.
yeah. One of the thing about this, the history behind this, my relationship with Bobby Guillaume, when he got Benson, he was the first mega black star that had a TV show in Hollywood, and he wanted his own costumer. So at that time was a friend of mine. His name was Art, and we were both good friends and costumers. And ABC called us both in, and we were both to audition for him. The first week was. We both walked in, and Art's like, "Hey man, you want to go first?" "Nah, you go first." "You go first." I said, "You go first." He decided he went first, and while he was working with Bobby Guillaume, I was back in the wardrobe department prepping the clothes for the show. So then when he finished, it was my turn, and then when I went to deal with Bobby Guillaume, very nervous. I'm dealing with a black man, maybe. You know, I was very nervous, and I remember I'm buttoning his shirt, my hand shaking, and he just said, "Baby, it's okay, you're gonna be fine." After that, when we finished the show, the head of the wardrobe department said now he'll make a decision. So a week later, before the next show started, she called me and said, "Robert has chose you." And our relationship, you know, being a costumer is, it's a whole nother profession. You know, there's certain things that you do. That one of the things as a costumer, you become a personal dresser. You really are responsible for that actor and the way they look from the dressing room to the stage, back to the dressing room. You know, that's my responsibility, and he was my responsibility, and we had a great relationship. So as it grew, when Benson was over, I think I was working on General Hospital, and I get this call. Soaps. I was doing General Hospital. I was doing stock at the time at ABC General Hospital, and I remember walking off the lot, and I said, "Wow, I forgot to check my answering service." I went back, and there was a call from his assistant that said that he needed to talk to me. I called him, and I always remember this, because I had been with him for a certain amount of time. I could see his expression on the other end of the phone as he's asking me to be a part of this. One of the things that I learned working with Robert Guillaume, he was my mentor. And what I learned from him was humility, to be gracious, you know. When he asked me, my answer to him is, it would be an absolute privilege to do this with you. Now, when I ended up doing that, and when I showed up at downtown Amerson Theater, he was rehearsing, and they stopped rehearsal, and he and I went to the craft service table. We were standing at the craft service table, getting coffee, and I remember we were both grinning, and I didn't know why I was grinning,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he knew why he was, because neither one of us realized that we were. And then when we went into the dressing room, it finally dawned on us what we had done, or what was happening. This was the first black man to be the Phantom of the Opera, to replace Michael Crawford for the next 8 months. Andrew Lloyd Webber chose him to represent and to be the
Wow.
Phantom. So when he did that, he called me. And at that time, the opening night, it was like a parade of the people that I had worked with, actors, at that time for my career.
It was like who's who
It was
came
like the
in,
who,
in
yeah, it
there,
was like,
right?
you
Because
know,
this right here, this project,
yeah.
this is history. This thing made history.
Oh, absolutely.
It made history.
And today there still hasn't been another black Phantom of the Opera.
And you still have his mask
I know.
with his makeup in it, his DNA. Robert
I
is here
got
with
all that.
us.
You know, I mean, he
He's still
he
with us.
mentored me. That was my. I mean, he mentored me. I learned a lot from him, being around him. He was a class act.
Wow.
He was a class act in front of the camera. He was a class act while I worked with him behind the camera, and he was a class act as my friend, because we were also friends outside of the studio.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Well, let's talk about another favorite project of yours. You brought some memorabilia. I love your memorabilia.
Yeah.
But let's talk about hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Ah.
Mark Curry. I remember hanging with Mr. Cooper. It was another one of those shows that
Yes.
was groundbreaking, you know, where the main
Yes.
character is African American and he's successful
Yes.
and he's out
Yeah.
there. And so tell us about, how did you get that gig?
Same thing. I worked with, actually, the costumer that I met at 20th Century Fox. Later on, our paths, we came across each other over the years, and he called and he asked me. He says, "Hey, I got this show at Warner Brothers, and you're the person that I want to do it. I want you to be responsible for this actor. He's a young actor. He's new to Hollywood. I want you."
He was green, huh? Mark was green.
Jeez, Mark was just off the road. He was just a comedian. He was just getting started, and he landed this huge role. And so I was the guy that was responsible for him, and we became great friends again on camera and off camera. Outside the studio. And I was with him. We did a lot of things together. When he'd go on tour, I'd go on tour with him. We did some pageants. I was his costume. So I did a lot of things with him.
That's one of the suits from Hanging with Mr. Cooper, isn't it?
That's one of the suits from Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Yes, it is.
Mark Curry wore this suit.
No, he didn't.
But it still was in that collection.
It was in that collection. Somebody else did.
Somebody else did.
We're not gonna say who.
Ooh, intriguing, Harold.
It doesn't fit me anymore, but we're not gonna say who.
Okay. Well,
But,
so talk about some of your other projects.
you know what?
Your time in Hollywood.
One of the things that I'll say is, I consider myself extremely fortunate to have been in the position to have been able to do the thing, to be in the world of entertainment as a costumer. When I finished my apprenticeship at 20th Century at Warner Brothers, I ended up at Universal Studios, and again, my next mentor was Vincent D. He took me and he introduced me to the world of costuming on a more intimate and a whole nother way. He literally put me out there. When I started, you walk into, in the 70s, when you walk into Universal Studios, you go into the wardrobe department, there was a huge board. This chalkboard, you were assigned to different shows. So I'd walk in on a Monday, I would be doing McMillan and Wife, taking care of Rock Hudson. That was my responsibility. Or I would be doing Ada Smith and Jones, taking care of Pete Duell. I did Quincy, George, Jack Klugman. I worked with Rock Hudson. I worked with Glenn Ford, and I must say that the royalty of all the actors was Richard Widmark.
Mm.
I have a picture of him from, I have in 1973 when we were in the middle of the desert.
Well, you were so young.
I know.
So young. That time flew by, didn't it?
It's like,
wow.
It's like, what happened? You know,
Mm-hmm.
but just, you know, I consider it, even today, everything that I learned about costuming and the mentors and the people that along the way, and it wasn't a whole lot because pretty much I had learned on my own, but there were certain people that took the time to show me certain things about being a costumer that stuck. And today, I still practice those same things because there's an etiquette. I call it costuming etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a protocol. There's a way that you treat an actor. There's a way that you treat the costume that you're going to put on an actor. There's a way that you know, a collaboration with an actor to get the best out of the character and to make the costumes work and to make the actor feel comfortable with what they're doing.
Creating
Characters with costumes.
Well, you've done so many, sitcoms and movies.
Yeah.
Eve, Everybody Hates Chris, Living Single.
Yes.
We could just go down and start checking the box. Distinguished Gentlemen, movies, sitcoms, episodic TV. You've done it, award shows, you've done it all.
Yeah.
But you still jumped again, Harold. See, I see your life in like a movie. Like you got these, or play, should I say a play? You got these acts and then
Act
the
1,
epilogue.
Act 2, Act 3, but
So-
not quite to Act 4 yet.
Yeah, and so you jumped again and came to
Look
Cleveland.
in Cleveland.
Why?
I
How?
said yes, dear.
Yes, dear.
I said, yes, dear.
Mhm.
Now, and you know what? When my wife and I got married, she's from Cleveland,
Mhm.
and she had been flying back and forth. I think I was working on a movie. I
Mhm.
think the movie was Tears of a Clown or something like that, an independent piece. And she was going back and forth, and I just, out of the blue, I said, "You want to move to Cleveland and be near your kids and your grandkids?" And she wasn't quite sure if I was serious. And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so, the next thing I know, we sold what we had, and we came here.
Moved to Cleveland.
Moved to Cleveland, and it was the best decision I could have made for me. It gave me an opportunity. Being here since living in Cleveland, I began to reinvent myself.
Mhm.
My whole life had revolved until I moved here. It was film
Mm.
and television.
Mm.
And then when I came here, I began to experience theater. And gotta give a shout out. Terrence Spivey, I hope you see this. I will forever be indebted to you, my friend,
Mm.
because he is the one that discovered me here.
And let's say who Terrence is. Terrence was artistic
He's
director
artistic
of
director
the
for
historic
historical-
Caramel House Theater,
Yes, yes.
the oldest African American theater in the
Absolutely.
country.
Absolutely.
We call ourselves Moo. I'm a Caramelite.
Yeah.
We call ourselves Moos.
Yeah.
And that's how I met you.
Exactly.
We
Now,
have
I gotta say this about
Mhm.
Caramel, I had no idea at the time that Caramel existed. But Cleveland, I never thought about being in Cleveland.
Mm.
However, I was working with a lot of actors that came from Caramel, like Ron O'Neal,
Mm.
Cicely Tyson, Paul
Mhm.
Winfield,
Bill Cobbs.
Bill Cobbs,
Amani, with
Amani
the-
Hakeem.
Right, with Everybody Hates
um,
Chris.
The list goes on.
It does go
Ruby
on.
Dee, it goes
Ruby
on.
Dee.
So I really, it was, I worked with these people before I came here. And then when I came here, it gave what I did with them even more. Because I was doing black exploitation movies with Ron O'Neal and Ruby Dee and Paul Winfield.
Melvin Van Peebles.
Oh my gosh.
The Godfather. The Godfather
My good friend
of indie film.
Mel.
Mel. That's what y'all call
him.
him, Mel.
No, Melvin Van Peebles and I, we met on a movie called Sophisticated Gents, first time we had met. But it was one of the more iconic movies because it was during the black exploitation time. But this movie consisted of every actor of notoriety, black actor that in Hollywood. I mean, Rosalind Cash, Selma Masulala, Rosie Greer, oh gosh, that's just a few. And my mind is racing, so I can't call them all, but that's just to name a few. Raymond St. Jacques, oh my gosh.
And that's a great film.
It
It's
was-
still
it was-
great. It's still a
you
great
know,
film. It was a great film then, and it's
And
still
yeah, and that's
worthy.
that's when we became friends. That's what it's like, okay, man. And we still are.
Well,
to the
you
day.
know, I met you through Caramel. You know, you called me. I still remember the day you called me. It's on a Monday. We had a long relationship with Caramel. We cleaned the costumes, and you called me. And you said, "I'm the costumer for Caramel," and you know, Caramel's community theater. So costumers, people have day jobs. So I'm like,
love
okay,
when you
yeah,
say,
you're the costumer.
Yeah, costumer. Okay, I got that. Yeah.
And
okay.
I got that. But by the time I hung up that phone, I said, this guy, because you said, happy Monday morning. I'm like, what's so happy? But by the time I hung up that phone, I said to myself, and this is around 2008, 2009, I think my life just changed. And it did, because listen, we went on to do all these movies. You introduced me to the movie industry. We went to do all these movies, Fast 8, The Avengers,
Oh,
Fun
yeah.
Size.
I worked on Fun Size.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah, you introduced me to the movie business. We had a great run with them. And now we're sitting here and I'm interviewing you. How does that happen, Harold?
You know what?
Is that Buddhism? And I know you're Buddhist. You've introduced me to Buddhism.
Yes.
But, and let me just say, you had a great run in Cleveland Theater and Ohio Theater. You've done some productions that were sellouts. They've extended. I mean, the magic touch.
Yeah.
I've seen you go in and just with the costuming change the whole feel of a production. And costumes are important. It's like with one of my favorite films, Panther,
Yeah.
Ruth Carter.
Yes.
And you know Ruth Carter.
Yeah, she and I came up together.
The costumes could have made or broke that film because they could have been cheesy
Sure.
and cartoonish, but she
Sure.
really knocked it out the park. And that's what costumers do. They bring,
Yeah.
an air of reality, to
Well,
the production.
Yeah, I agree. That's
And you did that with theater.
one of the things about being a costumer today, I look at it as more of an art form. A designer, a costumer is more. I consider us more of artists that paint with clothes. We create because we come up with colors and schemes and patterns and all of these things and textures. That's art, And then when you put I always thank the actors for standing still long enough for me to create with clothes. That was always my thing. So thank you guys for standing and being patient with me and allowing me to be creative and to help you to express and get to the most out of your character. So it's always been a passion. It hasn't changed. It still is a passion. I don't do it as often as I used to because, I'm coming up 50 years.
Wow.
Almost 50 years. That's over half my life. So I'm not. I started when I was 19. Okay, yeah, almost 50 years.
Wow.
That's all of my life.
And one of the other things that
Yeah.
you really brought to my attention
Yeah.
was the careers that are possible
Oh,
behind
yes.
the scenes. I
Absolutely.
mean, I don't even look at movies the same anymore. I look at what they got. Everybody on every commercial, every movie, every TV show, they're styled. Somebody has styled that outfit.
Yes.
So there are all these careers behind the scenes.
Well, there's a lot of, it is working in the film industry, behind the scenes can be the most lucrative. You can be extremely successful working behind the scenes. There's lighting, there's you name it. From the person that sweeps the floor to the person that lights, that does lighting, that pulls cable. These are careers. They've been doing this for a whole lot of years, so they know what type of cable, they know about cable, they know about lighting, they know how to natural and all of that stuff. So it requires work, it requires a desire, And someone said to me years ago, they said, as long as you can work your craft, the money will follow.
Mm.
Sometimes it'll be a lot of money, sometimes it'll be a little bit of money, sometimes it will be no money. But the idea is, when you have a craft that you want to work, it will always follow. But you have to be able to make that sacrifice in order for it to happen. It has to be a desire, it has to be a passion, it has to be, you have to have a desire or a passion. I still look at clothes and I get excited. Geez, you have to drag me out of a thrift store.
I mean, all these
Because-
beautiful clothes are from your collection.
Yeah, this is my collection.
Yeah, you have your own
Stuff.
company.
Yeah, Style by Crawford, LLC, rags.
You're a stylist.
You know?
So, epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's next? I mean, you got another jump in you, Harold. What's next?
You know what? I haven't thought about it, to be
No.
honest. I mean, I have and I haven't. I'm not quite sure yet. I mean, I spend a whole lot of time doing one thing, and I still want to do one thing. So, I'm open. That's all I can say right now to that. I'm not gonna, that's something that I really have to think about. I know it's gonna involve clothes. I know that. It's gonna, I've been a
That's your call.
stylist, I've been a costumer, I've been a designer, I've been a whole lot of things. So I know it's gonna, something, even maybe teaching, maybe being a consultant, you never know.
Wow. Well, listen, it went by way too fast.
That was quick. Dang.
But I want to thank G-Cuff, Greater Cleveland Urban Film Fest, for allowing me to interview you. I love hearing your journey. I love you being able to tell and, share your experiences with the audience. And I thank you.
Thank you for letting me share. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Jen Hearn, for allowing us to use your beautiful studio.
Yes, Jen, shout out to you. Brilliant photographer. Very well, very, very good, very good. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate you.
Bye, all. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
How was that?
It was good.
Was it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Well, it's so much to talk about, and I'm trying to condense
mind
it all
as you're
in.
asking
But
me these questions,
listen,
my mind is racing.
I know.
Like, man,
You
trying to get it all in.
No. We hit some of the points that I wanted to hit, and that was Phantom of the Opera, Mark, the Kiramu. I still wanted to talk about, but it was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I mean, it was good. It was comfortable. You know what? I'm comfortable and